People often ask us, how do you do it? Well, I'll show you how we do it. In this video, we are installing a metallic floor. Metallic floors are the wild, the fun, and the weird. You can put them down over most any concrete. They appeal to customers who want something unique and want their floor to be different than anyone else's, or they just like fancy stuff. Prep the floor in basically the same manner as you would for our chip floors as shown in our chip flooring video. The only major difference is that you will want to use a less coarse diamonds. Use 30 grit diamonds to achieve a CSP of 2 to 3. Repair all cracks in the concrete using our SF epoxy crack repair. Lay down a prime coat in a similar manner to the way we did it in our chip flooring video. There are a couple of major differences. First, lay down the epoxy base coat at 150 square feet per gallon rather than at 200 to 250. It is important to get more epoxy down on the prime coat for a metallic floor because we are trying to prevent off-gassing bubbles from coming through. Any off-gassing bubbles that come past your prime coat through your color coat will be virtually impossible to fix once the color coat is cured. Of course, we are not going to put any paint chips down on the prime coat. Back roll with a 3/8 inch nap, lentless grade 18-inch roller. Back roll with a spiked roller when you are finished. This helps alleviate the off-gassing holes. Let this cure, preferably overnight, as the base coat needs to be very hard for the next step. Using a drywall sander on a pole, sand the entire floor. Use 80 to 120 grit sandpaper. Use sandpaper and not sanding screens as the screens plug up. Sand the floor well. This step provides a nice, sharp profile for our epoxies to hold on to. Vacuum the floor thoroughly when you are finished. In this next step, we will be repairing any holes in the prime coat from off-gassing. Off-gassing holes are little holes or bubbles that may appear from positive vapor pressure pushing through the slab while your prime coat is curing. 100% of them need to be patched. Do not skip this step. It is very important. What start out as tiny off-gassing holes in your prime coat will wind up as large volcano-style holes in your color coat. They are virtually impossible to fix once the color coat is cured. Take great pains and pay attention to detail, patching the prime coat carefully. Use our SF epoxy crack repair to patch the prime coat. It is not totally necessary, but we wipe down the floor with acetone prior to applying the color coat. If you perform this step, make sure it is just prior to laying down the color coat. Do not let the acetone totally evaporate before applying the color coat. It is not break time yet. A few thoughts on picking colors. There are a lot of different ideas on picking these colors. Here are a few simple rules that will help. Single color floors actually look good. They are also the easiest. 2 colors are easier than 3 or more colors. Red and green accents are difficult to get right. Uneven patterns, when pouring the resin out, seem to work better than even patterns. We have done 3 or more multicolor floors and they have turned out great. The better artist you are, the better these floors seem to turn out. However, technique can overcome your lack of artistry. Ultimately, the colors are up to your customer. It is your job to educate them on what the floor could look like. However, their perception of how the floor should look and the reality of how it turns out will be different. So, to compensate for this, We take a lot of pains to help the customer understand that we won't really know what it looks like until we are done. We also always get a 50% deposit when working with metallics. The color coat goes down at 50 square feet per gallon. That is a very thick coat of epoxy. However, this is what it takes to get good, even coverage. The SF Metallic Epoxy Resin comes in a 3-gallon kit, 2 gallons of A in a 4-gallon metal can, and a 1-gallon container of B. The SF Metallic Pigment Powder comes in a separate 32-ounce jar. 24 hours prior to applying your color coat, mix the 32-ounce jar of pigment powder into the 2 gallons of A-side. Mix it thoroughly with a drill-powered mixing paddle. Put the lid back on the 4-gallon metal bucket and let stand overnight. This step helps the powder mix in thoroughly and helps avoid rockets. Rockets are the little squiggly marks in a metallic floor. They come from unmixed pigment powder. After letting stand for 24 hours, mix the A side and the mixed in powder with a drill-powered mixing paddle again. The next step is to use a paint strainer for a 5-gallon bucket and strain the A side with the pigment in it prior to mixing with the B side. If you follow these steps carefully, there should be virtually no rockets in your color coat. After you have mixed the A side and the metallic pigment powder together properly and strained it, it is time to mix the A and B sides together. Simply pour the 1 gallon of B side into the 4-gallon metal bucket with the properly mixed A side and powder already in it. Mix thoroughly with a power drill mixer for 1 minute. Scrape the sides and the bottom of the bucket with a large paint scraper. Then mix for another minute with a power drill mixer. Pour the mixed epoxy out in fairly uneven patterns. Try to make sure the coatings roughly cover the floor. Leave a little bit in the bottom for the good Lord. Do not tip the bucket upside down or scrape the last bit out of the bucket. This will lead to some unmixed A or B side getting into the floor and it won't cure. This will leave soft spots. Ruining a floor is simply not worth getting the last drop out. Use your spiked shoes to walk on the floor while spreading. Be very careful as the floor will be slippery. Use an 18-inch magic trowel to spread the epoxy around. Make sure the floor is evenly coated. You can make swirl patterns and whatever you like. After this is done, you can just get off the floor if you want. Or you can also go back over it with a magic trowel and or paint rollers. In this video, we go back over it with both. Less messing with the floor seems to be better. Let the color coat cure overnight. The last step is to apply the SF urethane top coat. Apply the urethane top coat at 5 to 600 square feet per gallon. This seems very thin, but if you put it on any thicker, it will have shiny spots. Place tape marks on the walls every 500 square feet or so. That way you will know how far to stretch a single gallon of urethane. Sand the floor in the same manner that you sanded the prime coat. Wipe down with acetone if you so choose. Do this just before applying the top coat, and once again, do not let the acetone evaporate before rolling on the urethane. Mix the SF urethane C side into the B side 1 to 24 hours before mixing with the A side. After letting stand, mix the B side and the C side again with a paint stir stick, making sure to get all of the C side off the bottom of the can. Now mix the A side into the 1 gallon can with the B and C sides already mixed into it with a paint stir stick. Be sure to scrape the sides and the bottom well. Pour a little urethane out on the floor. Use a 3/8 inch nap, lintless grade, 18-inch roller. Wet the roller and then spread the urethane as far as it will spread evenly. Watch the reflected light in the floor to ensure that it is even. Repeat until you have covered 500 to 600 square feet of the floor. Working this top coat more rather than less is a good idea. Once these 500 to 600 square feet are evenly covered, back roll it, cutting the paint line in half each time. Be very careful on your spiked shoes, as this will be slippery. Do not coat if the slab temperature is below 50 degrees. The urethane will not cure. When you are done, you can get off the floor. Let cure for 48 hours at temperatures above 50 degrees before returning to service. And that is how we do it.